Welcome, everybody. My name is Bill Bennett, and with Connections. I have the honor of introducing John Garber this morning because my son is on vacation. Otherwise, he would be here. I always tell individuals, which I'll say this, since we've been around for 37 years, sometimes I get in a seminar and I say, here's the gotcha question. You've been in business 37 years, but my first employee has been with me 44. That's my son. So in any case, I'd like to introduce John Garber this morning. He's a very special person. For those of you who haven't spent time with him, I would encourage you to do so because he's an unusual individual. As a keynote speaker, we sometimes, some in the community know him as the master of disaster. I know some people that are masters of deception. He's the master of disaster. The other ones I don't care for. In our company, sometimes he's known as Professor, get this, would you? Professor R.U. Claudius. That's a tag name because he's really an outstanding communicator, and we had to give him some kind of a name that kind of elevated him, you know. So anyhow, some of our people in our company, like all companies, have an aspect of elevating themselves. One young man came from Texas, and he talked about Texas for the first month, every day. One of the engineers came to him and said, do you realize where Texans come from? They got lost on the way to Arkansas. Mexicans got lost on the way to Arkansas. Back to John. He's really good at bringing understanding, which is very important, understanding to the world of technology. And I think you'll find this presentation both informative and entertaining. He's been in business technology for over 17 years, and with us going on 13. So we have he's young with the company. We have a couple that's been with us 35 years. But we're one of Florida's oldest, supposedly, IT companies. We've stayed ahead of the technology curve, fortunately. And we take a lot of satisfaction in working with companies wanting to help them in dealing with the intricacies and the difficulties of IT. Essentially, we become, when we're able to become, by virtue of the client, we become their technology partner. And in doing so, it allows them to focus on their business. We take care of the technology. We're their MIS entity. So Jonathan and Connections have been pioneers in the field of cloud computing, which is, of course, why you're here. He's sought after nationally. He's spoken in a number of venues. And on things like green, which I always hesitate, green technology, and also cloud computing, of course, in addition to business continuity, which in our area, and really many areas today, becomes very, very important. Business continuity is something that we all have to consider. So, I have to tell you, though, that John is quite unusual in that he also does a lot in the community. He'll come to when I have chapel with the kids about 2 times a year, and he grabs their attention because he loves children and is able to teach them from the youngest all the way up. Very unusual. And he's developed an internet safety for kids presentation for community environment, companies, groups. Also, that's just the kind of person he is. He's a communicator. So, his video blog, which he also has his daughter involved in, is called Master of Disaster, and it's the business leadership blog, the only one in the state to my knowledge. It highlights vision and values of local business leaders, and of course it deals with disaster preparation and some continuity tips, etc. But again, it's his way of getting information out. He believes in teaching and communicating. So one of John's great gifts is presentations like this, but it's presenting complex technology in a way that you can grasp it if you're not a technologist. And he does it real well. So without further ado, I would say stand and give him a hand, but well, you can do that if you like. Just welcome John.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We are going to move forward in this. As Bill told you, my passion is educating. I just love where I can share knowledge and empower people with ideas, and they can do things with it. And it doesn't matter whether it's little kids who a couple times a month I work with kids. It doesn't matter if I'm working with parents and we're talking about internet safety for kids, which is something I do out in the community, or green technology, or one of my biggest passions, cloud computing. I know all of you have heard of cloud computing. You've heard the term. What does it mean? We're going to get into that. Where did it come from? The 1800s. I'll prove to you that. Did everyone see the video that I sent out where I kind of show you the 19th century roots of cloud computing with Professor Claudius? Did anyone see that? That was in the last invitation I sent out last week. Everybody see that? I'm going to send that with a thank you note so you can all see that. Richard saw it. I'm so glad, Richard. So my passion, as I say, is really education. As Bill said, what I love to do is take really geeky stuff, and make it in plain English. So I promise you, I can't quite roll these up so quick, but there will be no bits, bytes, electrons, neurons, or morons coming out from under my sure, we're going to talk in plain business English. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Well, as I said, my passion is in fact for education, but there is, I think, a little bit of an elephant in the room, and you can tell because, there's an elephant in the room. That picture always makes me laugh, I'm sorry. But there's a little bit of an elephant in the room, and I want to make sure that we talk about it for a second. So I'm going to take off my educator hat, okay? And in all fairness, Connections has sponsored this and put this together and asked me to come and talk with everybody in the community about cloud computing, which I do a couple times a year. But I'm also in marketing for Connections for Business. So, that's the elephant in the room. They didn't just find me on the street and ask me to come in. I do work for Connections, so I wanted to get that out there. And so with that being said, I do have some housekeeping that we have to take care of beforehand. Does everybody recognize what this is? That's the pitch. There it is. He's got the pitch. So let's begin at the end. You didn't recognize the pitch? I thought you were a baseball fan. Come on. Here's the pitch, and let me get that out of the way so I can put on my educator hat and go back to doing what I love. All of you should have this form that says a cloud readiness assessment request. That's your way of taking action if anything that we say here today resonates with you and you'd like to know more about how you can apply cloud computing to your business. You can request this today, and there's no obligation coming out and doing it except for that you should offer me coffee because I drink lots and lots of coffee. Gil will tell you, right? Lots of coffee. So this is your way of engaging with me, or if you want to pass this on to someone else, and we can have a conversation. Now, my consulting time is $250 an hour. So if as part of the workshop, Bill and Connections team will send me out on their dime to meet with you, and we'll just wrap. It's not a sales thing. We just wrap about it and see what kind of applications you have and what some of the business needs are, and if cloud is a fit, and maybe some ideas of where you could proceed, whether you proceed with Connections or not. Is that clear? I mean, does everybody understand that process? So that's cool. There's no obligation. If at the end you want to leave that, you want to request it, you want to fax it. You remember fax machine? Oh, you remember fax machine. Right. Or you can email whatever, or just contact Richard. That being said, I am here today purely in an educational role. If you want to talk about cloud computing, I could be here all day. So I'll have plenty of Q&A time. I'll stay as late as you want. I'm happy to talk to you about cloud computing kind of in general. If you want to talk specifics about getting cloud computing in your company, some people start asking how much does it cost. I don't know yet because I don't know anything about your company. If you want to know those kind of questions, I need you to talk to somebody from the Connections team. So let me just make sure you know who they are. In the back there is my main man and right hand, Richard Soffin. I think all of you pretty much spoke with Richard. Bill Bennett, of course, you know. If you want to talk with Bill about that and taking action, that's fine. And over there in the corner, my doppelganger, Kat Olarte. If you haven't met her, boy, she dressed great. I said, half of it's mine. It's great. It's so funny that Kat and I share clothes, It's great. You notice that Kat, same dress on, your clothes, it's great. So if you want to take action, you want to take action, you have those kind of business questions, please ask those folks. You want to talk about cloud computing, talk to me. Last piece that I want to give you is this. It says Cloud Computing and Me. This is a way for you to just take some notes and follow on, and I will quiz you at the end, and I will give you prizes if you know the answer. No, I'm not kidding. And you see where it says, look for game changers in the corner? I'll tell you why, because the last time I did this, a bunch of people came up to me because I have this habit of saying, see, that's a game changer! And it really sounds just like that. So he said it was so funny to me every time you kept yelling, it's a game changer. That should be your thing. So I said, okay, that'll be my thing. So there will be a number of times where I'll mark out where there is a game change in technology. You know, we've been all the way back to the 1800s, so there's a lot of game changing going on. Is that, you know, right? So there's going to be a lot of game changing going on. So look for the game changers. A lot of those will be on this sheet. This will help you remember those things. But I want you to do me a favor. If you see me saying game changer, I want you to yell game changer, okay? Can you do that? All right, let me hear you say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Game changer. Okay, I'll tell you, I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to give this to Gil. Gil, if you hear me say game change, you can just ding that, all right? So people will know. All right, so there's a couple pieces we'll talk about at the end. There's some things on the back table. Who wants to get into this already? Let me put on my educator hat. So comfortable. Let's talk about cloud computing, because that's what I really love. Cloud computing, because I said I'm not going to talk about bits and bytes, is about being a game changer, for businesses. The types of businesses where this makes the most sense are companies with multiple locations. You got a satellite office here or there, or you're based in Fort Lauderdale, we got something in Orlando or here, or temporary locations, we do that for construction. Satellite employees, not the same as a mobile employee. We'll talk about what a satellite employee is. Mobile employees. How many of your employees today are mobile? How many of them should be mobile? Right? If they're in sales, all of them should be mobile, because there's no money in the office. Where's the money? In the street. So I want to make sure that they can be out of the street with some fabulous, unlimited data plan. So, it's a little plug. Any company that's got end-of-life equipment, you're facing a big turn cycle. Guys, if you're not looking at cloud, you're saying, well, we've got a big end-of-life server system here. It's 5, 7 years old. That's way end-of-life. Let's put in a new one. I go, wow, are you serious? You know, I mean, when I think about that, they do the same thing over and over again. I got to ask people, well, has anything changed in your business in the last 7 years? Oh, sure, lots of things have changed. We got this, a new regulator. So, why would you be doing the exact same technology? Do you think technology's changed in 5 or 7 years? It changes a lot. It changes every 6 months. Isn't that Moore's Law? Every 6 months, it doubles and goes down, right? Moore's Law. Right? So, end-of-life equipment, companies that are growing. I hope all of you are with companies that are growing or planning on growing, because that's a really good sign this is the time to grow. Or you've experienced a significant downtime event. What is a downtime event? What is significant? You know, a downtime event could be a workstation that's crashed. I got law firms as clients. When they have a workstation that isn't working, they're losing tons of money. You know, $300, $400 an hour per workstation. And if a server's down, the whole system is down. What is significant? I don't know. I always liken it to the old joke about comedy and tragedy. You know, if someone says, what's the definition of comedy and tragedy? Comedy is you dropping a hammer on your foot. Tragedy is me dropping a hammer on my foot. So I don't judge what's significant or what's expensive, people. All downtime in the IT business is evil, right? There's a bunch of people here from IT as well, right? Downtime is evil. And if you're concerned about disasters, now we're in hurricane season. It's going to be a hell of a hurricane season. I think statistically it's supposed to be a very active one, whatever that means. I've lived here my whole life, so I hear that every year. But when they talk about how many storms and named storms, my answer is always, who cares? I'm only concerned about one. You know which one? The one's going to hit you. So you can have 20 storms in a season or one storm. It can be one storm. And that's the one that hits you. So the numbers don't really mean much to me. I have to be on a disaster footing all the time. Right? Because that's my obligation. So most disasters, by the way, are actually man-made. So they're not even natural disasters. Even Hurricane Wilma, if you remember that, I call that a man-made disaster because it was barely a Category 2. It's just the entire FP&L grid failed for 2 weeks. That's a man-made disaster. It wasn't much of a natural disaster. All right. So you've got your follow-along sheet. You got that? You know how to do a game changer. Give me one test, Gil. All right. So I said in an email to you last week, and I'll say it again. The roots of cloud computing are in the early 1800s. Who believes that? You do. Do you know why Larry believes that?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why Larry believes, not just because he's a smart guy with a great tie, which he both of those things. But Larry's a lawyer, and they teach you in law school, never ask a question in court you don't already know the answer to, right? So, in fact, the roots of cloud computing...
That's a question you knew the answer to.
All right, of course it's a question I knew the answer to. So the roots of cloud computing go back to the 1800s. And the roots of cloud computing are actually in the American Industrial Revolution, which I think is on your sheet. So it really parallels the American Industrial Revolution. Now, how do I get from the Industrial Revolution to cloud computing? Come back to the 1800s with me, and I will show you. Because the history of business, even technology business, is energy. It's all about energy. When Google builds a data center, what's the first thing they build before they put in wires for data? Power, right? They build these massive data centers. The NSA builds a giant one out. First thing they had to do was figure out how they were going to get power and cooling there. So business is about energy. I can't have manufacturing without energy. So let's go back to the 1800s, and now we're going to see business in the 1800s. And the story begins with a plucky Scottish engineer who arrives in the United States in 1835. I told you this goes way back. His name is Henry Burton, and he is a very clever engineer, and he ends up in Troy, New York, in upstate. Anyone, you're from New York, you know Troy, New York, upstate, right? Near the Erie Canal. Now, energy to drive manufacturing back then is used mechanical energy. It's not electrical energy. You have to move mechanical energy around through gears and pulleys and all kinds of belts and bands. And so there's some problems with that because it takes typically 2 people in engineering maintaining all of this stuff for every 1 person that's actually putting goods out, manufacturing goods. See what kind of ratio that is? 2 support to 1 production? That's a terrible ratio, right? If you own a business, that's a terrible ratio. That would be like having 1 salesperson and 10 accountants. You know, unless you're an accounting firm, if you're selling something, you've got the wrong ratio. I need 1 accountant and 10 salespeople. So we've got the wrong ratio here. So, here's what's going on in the 1800s. If you want to get somewhere, the main mode of individual transportation in the 1800s is what? You'd ride a horse. And if you were moving cargo maybe up and down and then a little bit but stops at the Mississippi, you'd be riding on an iron horse, which is a train. Now horses walk around on, not these fantastic boots that Cat has I'm jealous of, but they walk on horseshoes. And railroads require lots of spikes. Now, if you need something precision in metal in the early 1800s, you have to go to a guild of craftsmen known as, you were there, you know, a blacksmith, right? Blacksmiths. Now, blacksmiths are very good at what they do. So a blacksmith can turn out a set of horseshoes in a day. You got a horse, blacksmith, forging, set of horseshoes in a day. Handful of railroad spikes in a day. Well, old Henry Burton comes to the Troy Iron Works in 1835-ish, and he invents a stamping machine using this mechanical energy, and he can turn out horseshoes. What kind of rate do you think he can produce horseshoes at? 1 per hour. 1 per hour, good answer. 1 per minute would be another guess. How about 1 a second? Took 1 blacksmith a day. He's stamping out horseshoes at 1 a second. He's stamping out railroad spikes at about the same rate. Now, 2 things to remember. He's about to meet somebody pretty soon who's going to need a lot of horseshoes and a lot of railroad spikes. That's number 1. Number 2, he ain't very popular with the blacksmith guild. Right? Fair enough? Well, Henry Burton needs a lot of energy to drive this machinery. And burning whale oil isn't cutting it. All right? So he sets about, since he's blessed with Troy Iron Works being on a river adjacent to the Erie Canal, he builds a water wheel. Now that's pretty old style of energy. That goes back hundreds of years before him, right? drive a mill with a water wheel, no big deal. He builds one, but he's a very ambitious guy. And he builds what becomes known as Burden's wheel. And it's the largest water wheel in North America since then and ever since, before then and ever since then. It's the largest one ever. It stands 50 feet tall. 50 feet tall isn't exciting you today, but it's over 5 stories. Simply building a 5-story building in 1835 in rural America was a feat, let alone a moving object. How much do you think his 50-foot water wheel weighs? What do you think? Without the water. It weighs 250 tons. Why? Because he works at the Troy Iron Works, not the Troy Wood Works. Not the Troy Balsa Wood Factory. There's one thing Henry knows, it's iron. But he builds this sucker to last forever. And he builds it out of iron. Now, if you can imagine, once 250 tons starts a spinning, keep your fingers away from the blade, right? Don't stop that with your tongue. 250 tons spinning, but you know what it turns out? The equivalent of 50 horsepower. 50. Which is like, like a rider lawnmower, a small motorcycle today. But understand, and I won't get into torque, but the horsepower is only 50. The torque of a 250-ton rolling object is a lot. It's a lot. And he's moving it all throughout the factory with all his gears and pulleys. You got that? Injuries galore. Lots of people keeping that running. Oiling that water wheel because they don't want that to seize up when it's spinning 250 tons. A couple people producing. It's not the best ratio in the world, but it's putting him on king of the world. Now remember, 1862-3, he needs somebody who needs a whole lot of horseshoes and a whole lot of railroad spikes. Who do you think that is? The government, Abraham Lincoln. Because the Civil War starts. And he's in the north. And they need a whole lot of horseshoes and a whole lot of railroad spikes. Henry Burden becomes the Howard Hughes of the Civil War, right? Howard Hughes made a fortune on aviation in World War II, was an inventor. Henry Burden becomes the Bill Gates, or really the Howard Hughes, is most appropriate, of the Civil War. Now, 2 things happened that totally changed the conversation for him after the war. About 1895, there is a game changer. What do you suppose it is? Something gets invented that changes everything. What do you think it is? No, we've got mechanical energy, but what does the steam engine drive that makes it interesting? Thomas Edison comes out with something fabulous. It's electricity.
Tesla.
Yeah, he didn't invent it. He just popularized it. And again, he gets a lot of credit for being an inventor, and I'll tell you, you should get a lot of credit for being a guy who gets patents, not necessarily invents, because he was great at stealing ideas. Electricity was one of them. But he comes out with the light bulb, whoever said that is correct, and he comes out with electricity. Now that is a huge game changer, because all of these factories now, thank you, all of these factories, they start figuring out that we can put in electrical machines here. And electric machines are smaller, and we don't have all these pulleys, so we just run some wires, and it cleans up the whole factory floor. And sure, I have 13-year-old kids that are getting electrocuted every now and then. And that understand happens. But I start taking all these water wheels and steam engines that are creating mechanical energy, whatever they're burning coal. Coal was cheap, right? And I start driving a dynamo with it. Instead of mechanical energy, I'm driving a generator. Same back end, new front end, and I'm going to pump electricity through it. Here's the problem. Now I own my own generator and my own mechanical device, and I have all these brand new electrical machines on the floor. So remember the ratio that we had when it was mechanical energy? Hasn't changed at all. I have higher density on the floor, but I still need about 2 support engineers for every 1 person doing output. Is this ratio good? No, but it's progress. Now, shortly after electricity comes out, we have another huge game changer. What do you think happens to electricity that becomes a game changer? Edison again. You can plug it in. In other words, utility. You see, Thomas Edison spent so much time trying to perfect the light bulb, again, standing on the shoulders of all the inventors before him, but he spends maybe about 10,000 attempts to perfect the light bulb. Do you know why he was so keen on perfecting the light bulb? Here's a clue. He was not afraid of the dark. Thomas Edison was so focused on perfecting the light bulb because he wanted you to be so excited about it, you'd want to buy his product. He wanted to be the guy not to sell you the light bulb, but the electricity. That's why the oldest utility company in the country is Con Edison. You got it. No accidents there. His light bulb was a way to drive you to buy his electricity, rewire the grid, etc. All started in New York area. Now, think about what this did for manufacturing. All this back end, all this driving this, and I got to bring in train loads of coal or whale oil or kerosene or whatever I'm burning and doing and water and all these people. And he says, you know what, man? Just plug in. You know what? You could use as much as you want, and how much am I going to charge you? I'm going to charge you only for the electricity you use. That's the birth of the utility model. Scalable on demand. You need more? Crank it up. I'll just bill you more. Right? That's the utility model. On demand, scalable, and the company carried none of the burden of manufacturing or maintaining any of the equipment used to drive the electricity. That is a game changer on energy. Right? Do you see what that does? When all of a sudden the business is freed from the burden of the infrastructure, it can focus on the manufacturing. Now all of a sudden, I needed maybe half of one engineer for maintaining just the equipment to every one person. Maybe half or one per two. Maybe I flipped the whole model upside down because of the utility model. And that's what we're going to see exactly in the arc of computing. Is everybody with me so far? Watch how fast this changes. Can you see this? Electricity comes out, manufacturers start making their own because the grid isn't there yet. They will now either move manufacturing to where the grid is, or as soon as the grid hits their area, and again, all this manufacturing upstate New York, always along waterways so we can ship it. As soon as the utility grid moves up, people doing it privately is completely faded out. Does that make sense? Wouldn't you do the same? Now, let's go back to Henry Bird and his water wheel. Henry Bird spent a ton of money on that water wheel. Within 50 years of making it, right after electricity came out, guess what? Sat rusting in a field. Now, don't feel bad for Henry Bird, because he made millions off the Civil War, because he could supply the horseshoes and the railroad products. That makes sense, right? And don't feel bad for him, because Henry Bird was an incredibly smart guy. He used the technology that was available to drive the business, and when it no longer made sense, when it became obsolete, he said, and let go. He wasn't afraid to let go of a new idea and grab an old idea and grab a new idea. In the early 1800s, he was the guy with the new idea. As soon as Edison had a better idea that saved him money, goodbye wheel. It just rusted away. There's just scraps of it in a museum there. So forget it. Get the wheel out of the water, guys. And it rusted in a field. We're going to plug into the grid. He saw, by the way, he bought the Troy Iron Works, so it was his pocket. And he said, maintaining this wheel, forget it. Let go of an old idea, grab a new idea, because it made sense. He gave up that whole burden of production of energy. Does that make sense? Now we're going to see the exact same thing in computers. Computers follow the exact same path. See this computer? This is a mechanical punch card computer system. Yes, we had hanging chads in the 1898 census. No joke. This was used to tabulate the 1898 census. A mechanical punch card device. Now, here's a guy doing tabulating. I needed probably 2 to 3 people with watchmaker-like skills to keep a mechanical punch card thing aligned and working, right? Now, so I've got computing, but my ratio is just as bad as it was in manufacturing. It's cool. But the population was so small, they still could have done it by hand faster. But it was cool. But look at the ratio. You with me on that? Now, this is 1946. I think Herman Howard said, you got a computer like this, the country will only need at the most about 6 of these, ever. Mostly for military and scientific purposes. Now, it made sense for him to say that because he couldn't see the scalability later. He could only see that you're only seeing part of that computer, by the way. What's behind is actually a whole floor of vacuum tubes. Anybody remember vacuum tubes? I remember growing up in Miami, the Ecker Drugs. Remember Ecker Drugs? You walked in and on the left was a vacuum tube tester. And I was fascinated by it. So, vacuum tubes, punch cards. He couldn't see it because it took so much overhead to run this thing. It took power. It took support engineers. It took people tracing vacuum tubes. If you've got ever try and trace a bad bulb on a string of Christmas tree lights, picture 10,000 vacuum tubes and one of them ain't working. And there's no computing going on. Wow, right? Now they get small enough, IBM comes up with a product that a business could own. This is business size, right? You could own it. I still need a support team, but now I got it in the hand of business and it's right side up. For only the government could make sense of it, because the government doesn't have to turn a profit when they do the thing, right? Some things never change. Now this is a game changer.
Game changer.
Because I could bring a computer down to an individual's desktop. I could make it affordable and you could put it in your home. And they were amazing. They were cool. People could do computing on their own. People were writing software. Just average people were teaching themselves BASIC. And they were writing stuff. And it was amazing. The problem is, they didn't talk to anyone. Right? They were by themselves. They were in a vacuum. So we start connecting them. And that too is I hate to say it, a game changer. Because we've got a network. And now we're going to put computers on everybody's desk, not just the accountants, not just one person. We're going to put a computer on everybody's desk, and I got to have them talk to each other in the office, and I got to have them hopefully talk to other people around the world somehow. That's when we start doing early EDI data transfer. We're not even talking about email. This is just EDI, if you know what that is, right? You know deep what that is. So now all of a sudden, as soon as I got more, I created a problem that wasn't there. I had people with pencil and paper, now I stick in computers, and I need a whole team of people to keep that running. Right? You see how this looks just like manufacturing in the Industrial Revolution? My ratio of support to production is upside down. And here's where it all changes, really just a few years ago. I don't like to read slides to people, but this is the whole presentation right here, guys. This is everything. This is it. Eric Schmidt said in 1993, before he was working for Sun at the time, now he's the CEO of Google, a little company you may have heard of. And he says, when the network becomes as fast as the processor, the computer hollows out and is spread across the network. You get that? When the network becomes as fast as the processor, the whole computer hollows out and is spread across the network. That's the cloud. Look at this iPad. Huh? How many people have a tablet like an iPad or Android or something like that, a smartphone? Just about everybody in the room. How much fun is it if you can't get on the internet? That's crazy. These things sell for $600 to $700. They're made by the happiest Chinese slave labor you can imagine. There it is. Oh my gosh. You mean for all that, it doesn't do anything for me unless it's connected to the internet. Why? Because everything you want is on the cloud. And that's what the internet entails. All of a sudden, even though this device has more computing power than the first space shuttle had, my smartphone has more computing power than the entire Apollo mission, whole Apollo space program. This is more power than the space shuttle, first space shuttle came out. What's on the cloud? What makes it so interesting? You're already on the cloud. Everybody recognizes Facebook, right? That's where just hundreds of millions of people around the world, just wasting tons of company time every day, right? You would think there'd be no hunger in the world with the amount of people on Farmville, you know what I mean? Google. I mean, think about Google for a second. I don't care what search engine you use, Yahoo, Bing, whatever. I don't really care. But the idea is that if I would like, a recipe for a Thai sauce, some kind of obscure Burmese noodle dish, I could Google it, and within a second, actually find that recipe on a website in Myanmar, hit Google Translate and have it translated from Burmese into English without actually having anything in my hands. There's no knowledge retained. There's no overhead to me at all. I didn't have to own an encyclopedia set. I didn't have to buy a magazine. I didn't do any of that. I just searched, and the whole world became at my fingertips on a simple little device. You follow that? That's where it becomes really wild. So here's all kinds of ideas. World of Warcraft. Millions of people in their parents' basement playing this game all night. The game doesn't exist on their computers, you understand. It doesn't actually exist. They don't own it. They have to go online and play it with people around the world. Anybody recognize this? What is that? Wikipedia. Look at that. Hundreds of millions of people around the world all collaborating and sharing completely erroneous information. That's Wikipedia! That's incredible, right? But then we get into the business space. Salesforce.com, Here's some ERP solutions that are based on the cloud. SAP, huge complicated ERP system that nobody can use, on the cloud, right? Amazon, you can have a whole storefront there. LinkedIn, the thinking man's Facebook. All of these things are made possible on any device. Even essentially a dumb device like an iPad, because of the cloud. Is everybody with me so far? So where are we? Where are we in this evolution of the technology? We're somewhere around here. We're somewhere in between an amoeba and a capuchin monkey, okay? But I'll give you an example of how fast the technology changes. About a year ago, I had the pleasure of having a brand new 5-ton air conditioner installed in my house. So, I had a new air conditioner installed. When they came to sell, the salesman came to sell it to me, we did the paperwork, it was a credit card, he had to call in, he had to take back, they mailed me a thing, and he had a 3-part thing I signed, I got the pink or the yellow, he got the other color, the white one went to accounting. That makes sense? That's typical, right? So he did it. They come, crane comes, move it over to my house, installs the thing, sign another invoice, 3-part triplicate, get it, and he goes away. A couple weeks later, believe it or not, the air conditioner stops running. It's okay. It has a happy ending. You're on. I call them. That's a happy ending would be a game changer for me. I deserve a ding for having a happy ending. But it was hot as hell. It was the summer, and it was hot. So the technician comes out, and he goes up on the roof and fixes it, and the air comes back on. He comes in, and he goes, well, let me show you what happened. Now, all of a sudden, something's happened in the intervening couple weeks. He pulls out an iPad just like this. He doesn't have that gray clipboard with the paperwork in. He pulls out an iPad. He goes, you see this? He's got a bunch of pictures on the screen that he took with the iPad. He goes, see this part? This was a defective part. And so we've replaced that. This part was part of your existing infrastructure. That valve, we had to replace that. I took one off the truck and put that in. You have to pay, it was like $25. The label was okay because I was already here. Here's all the stuff. Here's the thing. Would you initial, he gives me a stylus. Would you initial here and initial there? Sign this at the bottom. For that part, do you want that to go on the credit card that's on file? Yes, he gets another thing. Thank you so much. If you check your inbox, there'll be an invoice there and a copy of the pictures. I tip the guy, and I'm in technology! And the guy's smoking me. The air conditioner guy is smoking me. When the air conditioning guy blows my mind, it's blown, all right? He leaves. I check out my inbox. There's an invoice from AAA Modern. I'll give him a plug. AAA Modern. There it is. Now, that's the cloud realized today. What does that do for that business? Did he have to go back, put in paperwork to get his truck replenished? Or were they already waiting with a part to replenish his truck when he got back? They had real-time inventory maintenance. What? Did he have to turn in paperwork to accounting? Nope, they already had it. Did they have a 30-day, 20-day sitting there waiting for someone to process all the credit cards in a batch? Or was the credit card already charged and paid for? Before he stopped off to get a donut, they had their money, right? That's business today. Now, they built a lot of custom software to do that, but the infrastructure exists. It's just cloud. We do stuff like that. We've done that for connections for law firms. We've taken all kinds of companies, distributors, done the exact same thing with their existing software. I could take it in his existing ERP software and done a lot of that. As long as they had a piece to integrate the photos and stuff, you have a signature piece, that's off-the-shelf component. We could fake it until they make it, specifically for the thing. We could have put it on the cloud today that way. No problem. Do it for law firms all the time. Total game changer. Lawyer used to go, Larry, you're a lawyer, used to go into a deposition or court. If you're litigating, you'd have an intern guy pulling what?
A wagon.
A wagon. What's in the wagon?
Tons of paper.
The case file. There it is. You got to find something. You're going to say, excuse me, I need a few minutes to go dig through it, right? We took a law firm and we put them up on the cloud. We put in a document management, which was from Xerox, off the shelf, plugged in. They started scanning everything from that day forward. He started walking into depositions and mediations with an iPad. The entire case file was at his fingertips. He had a Sprint thing to get on the internet. It was 3G at the time. Now he's got the 4G thing, right? He would be on the internet, and he brought his own internet with him. He didn't rely on anybody else. Guy could say, and also would say, I don't know anything about it. I didn't sign that. He would go right to the case file thing. He could index all down, pull it up, and go, is that your signature? You go, yeah. Did you realize perjury is a felony? You want to change that answer? And he stopped schlepping the cart. Opened up 4 other locations. All we did was put a scanner at each of them and a secretary. We didn't put a lawyer there. All the litigation was happening in the central office. They were just intaking mortgages and stuff for mortgage litigation. Spun it up, got out of the mortgage litigation, scaled it down. Paid for what he needed as he needed it. Same concept. Is that cool? What is the cloud? How does it work? It's really simple. Most of your applications for business have 2 pieces. The server side piece and the client side piece. So if you're running, let's say, Sage ERP, or even QuickBooks, or an Access database, or pick something. Even your email, Outlook. Outlook has a back end called Exchange. That's the server piece. Outlook is the client piece. Typically, the server piece sits on the server, and the client piece sits on your desktop, laptop, or Access. You all with me on that? Half of you all in IT, you get that right? Well, in the cloud, I take your server and I put it up in a secure data bunker, a co-location center. It's got redundant heating, power cooling, armed guard, biometric access, internet, generators, got all that. I put it in a high availability platform. High availability fault tolerant means that half of everything could die and I not lose the data, right? I could lose a network card, I could lose a power thing, I could lose a whole server. The way we scale that, it's all high availability. Okay, you're safe. Stuff we couldn't afford to do in your office. I put the server side piece up there. But then right next to it, I put the client piece too. I take it off your desktop and I put it up there. Now all you have to do is connect via the internet or through a secure encrypted tunnel up here, and you're going to run the client piece just like you did on your desktop. But we're now going to divorce the running of the application from the access device itself. You see that separation? Doesn't matter if it's your laptop, doesn't matter if it's the hotel business center, doesn't matter if it's an iPad, an Android, a smartphone, your home computer, Aunt Sally's computer, doesn't matter. Kiosk at an airport. I've divorced, I've separated the actual application from a simple thing, an access device. And we only need about 70K to run full application. What's the speed on 4G these days? It's a couple megs, right? So usually I think 4G is somewhere around 5 to 6 megs on a good day, right? Understand that a T1 line, remember T1 is 1.5 meg. Now I can get a smartphone that's got 6 meg. The phone's got more connectivity than your office, and you don't have mobility for your employees, you're being left in the dust. So what do we get at it? Is everybody with me on that, by the way? Do you understand how we've put it all there? We've got our email, our documents. We've got our line of business application. We've got practice management software. We have accounting software. I've got ERP software. It doesn't matter. And the beautiful part is, it's all secured up there. I've taken all the intellectual property out of the office and put it in a secure encrypted location with all that redundancy, 200-mile-an-hour concrete bunker. That's huge because 80% of all hacking attacks are internal. If I take it out of the office, I've mitigated that threat down to 20%. Now we mitigate the other 20% with network security. 60% of all data loss. What do you think causes 60% of all data loss? Your employees. Your employees are 60% of your data loss. About 38% of it is sudden hardware failure without proper redundancy. 2% is natural disasters. I like to push the hurricane button, get your attention, but folks, the truth is it's you, that's killing the data. True, right? So now I can mitigate that problem down to left of 40%. We got the redundancy in place, we mitigate the other remaining 40%. See how that works? That's why having data in your office in 2013, it's a sucker's game. You with me on that? Everybody clear? So what's frustrating business today? As soon as you buy it, what happens? I can't say it's obsolete and doesn't work, but
It has a short life.
it changes so quick. Thank you. It changes so quick that all of a sudden, I wouldn't put any money into it, right? Like after a year, do I want to put upgrades into it? When I'm like 2 years away from replacing it, I can't really scale it. That's the typical model. That's why when a guy says I'm replacing a 5 or 7-year-old server with exactly what I did 7 years ago, I really just want to smack him in the head. I got a big CapEx, big capital expenditure, and I'm going to keep repeating. Microsoft software has a lifespan of about 20 months. A server has a lifespan of 3 years. By month 37, you should be replacing it to stay current best practices. Big CapExes. Microsoft merry-go-round. That's the guy on the hamster wheel there. What's the Microsoft merry-go-round? I sell it to you today, and I'll sell the exact same thing to you about 20 months from now because you've got to be compatible with everybody else. That's why Bill Gates is a billionaire and I'm not. Get off the merry-go-round. The data's locked in the office. Why aren't your employees mobile? Sprint's got a 6 meg connection. I told you need 70K. Why is an employee sitting in the office waiting for orders to wander in? Kick them out, right? People want to work remotely. Gartner found that employees that are empowered with mobility are 33% more productive because they work more. They work the job around their lifestyle. We have men and women in the workplace equally. Men and women therefore have to share in the home life. And so everybody's got to have mobility. I go pick up my daughter all the time. I go take my son to gymnastics. I go do all this stuff. I'm equally participating. I want to, and therefore I need mobility because I'll sit at the Y, watch her dance, and do email. Right? People will go and work out in a treadmill and do email on their BlackBerry or whatever. That means they want to work for you after hours. They want to go on vacation and still keep in touch with the business. Thank you. It's your vacation time, but thank you for staying in touch. Right? That's huge. Business continuity. Big, big problem. Not just here. Guys, if you haven't learned anything in the past couple years, if you haven't learned anything from these tornadoes in Oklahoma, if you didn't learn anything from Hurricane Irene that hit Vermont, I grew up in South. I've been here for 45 years. A hurricane hit Vermont? Superstorm Sandy hit New Jersey. You know what they called Superstorm Sandy? Because it wasn't a hurricane when it actually hit. It was a superstorm. It wasn't a hurricane. Right? Dig this, folks. Estimated $20 billion in damage. $50 billion in business loss. That's what downtime does to a business. 2.5 times the physical damage was the business loss. Most businesses that are down for 10 days or more will be declaring bankruptcy within a year. Businesses that are down for 2 weeks or more, 60% of them will never reopen. That's what's at stake. Put it on the cloud and say we have growth without boundaries and a future without fear. Totally on demand, scalable. I could walk away, I could go up, I could go down. Seasonal, up, down, right? I want everyone to turn your stations WIFM. Everybody know that station, what it stands for? What do the call letters stand for, Angel?
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me? We put it on the cloud, all of a sudden I have business continuity because I'm in a data bunker with high availability, fault tolerance. For example, Connection's main cloud platform is over $1 million. Scalability, just like electricity. I need more, I need less. I pay for what I use. It's an OpEx, not a CapEx. I'll throw it to my accountants in the back, right? OpEx, I can depreciate 15 cents of the dollar, 3 years, I'm done. Section 179, maybe if I'm lucky. OpEx is tax deductible every month on a 100% basis, minus your tax, right? Huge, huge cash flow issue. Remote access, any device, anywhere, anytime. Speaks for itself. Everybody got that, right? Productivity, 33%. We talked about that. There's mobility. I want to talk about the difference between a satellite worker and a mobile worker. Mobile worker is pretty clear. You know what a satellite worker is? Satellite worker is, I got a couple. She works for the company. Economy's tough. He's got to move to North Carolina because he's got a job. I don't want to lose her. I can keep her if I'm on the cloud. She's a satellite employee. Bob has to go. We got aging baby boomers. Bob has to go be with his mother who's going through chemo for 6 weeks. She's on the other side of the country. I can't replace people in train. That's very expensive, right? It's like 5 times the cost. Right? So he says, I'm going to be out there for 6 weeks. And 6 weeks turns into 6 months mighty quick. He's a satellite employee. I don't want to lose people because that's the most valuable asset you have. If you don't think employees and the skills that you've given them, they've built on top of not the most valuable asset you have, you're really talking to the wrong guy. You're in the wrong room. All right? That's a satellite work. 100% peace of mind. I'm not worried about my office. I'm not worried about what I paid for the equipment. I'm not worried about when my license is expiring. I'm not worried about anti-virus. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. You know, we talk about mobility. We talk about satellite. We say with our cloud, work is something you do, not a place you go. Everybody get that? What to look for in a cloud solution? You really got to have someone who's got experience. Straight up. It's not you don't want to be the guinea pig on that one. That's why some of the people we work with are actually IT companies who have a great practice. They look at the cost of starting cloud computing and the learning curve, and they say, can you work with us? And we do. We have a program to work with other IT companies where they can leverage our cloud, service their clients, and it's a win-win. And we basically go to market together that way. Track record with verticals, very important. It's you know, everybody deserves their first client. The question is, do you want to be that person's first law firm or whatever on the cloud? All the Microsoft license has got to be per person and on demand, totally scalable. Microsoft has the program. You have to be a certain size to get that program. Connections is that company. Got to be supporting all the devices. Every brand, every tablet, thin clients, everything. If they want to work you into a corner and say it only works with a full computer or something, walk away. That's not a mature product. Local expertise and support. Straight up. Let me give you the spoiler. I'm bashing some things like Microsoft 360 and Google Docs, Google Apps. People are getting off of that in droves. Why? Because one of the things that someone like Connections brings to the table, they sit across the table and they understand your business. And they craft a solution that's tailored to your specific business needs, and more importantly, your long-term strategic goal. Google Docs is a commodity on the cloud. You buy it and there's nobody to help you. You can't get support. You got to have local support. I got to have a support model that brings it down to the user. I'm going to let you in on a secret in IT. Once we deploy technology, it works fine. It really works fine until we get users involved. And really, the technology works fine until somebody starts using it. And you know what the problem is? Not with the technology. The user needs support. Most of our help desk questions are, how do I, seems like, can I? They're not, my computer died and the smoke's coming out of it and whatever. It doesn't happen. Does it all make sense? Skip that for time. Who is the cloud for? I'll say it again. If you or clients you know, associates you know, if they've got multiple locations, they want to have mobile workers or satellite employees. If they're concerned about legal compliance, what's legal compliance? HIPAA, Gramley-Bliley, Sarbanes-Oxley, FINRA. I put them in the cloud, it's compliance in a box instantly. Instantly for the data side. They can mess up the rest of it. But the data side, I put it in the cloud, I meet all of those compliance standards. Anyone facing a major equipment turnover, huge, huge opportunity to look at cloud computing for that. Is it right for you? Take off this Education Act. You can request a cloud assessment. The time is on me, the coffee's on you. And we can talk about it. Bill, Richard, Captain Cindy. You've got the form on that. And I am running a little bit long, but I would like to open up for Q&A, and I will stay as long as you want. If you have to leave, I understand. Can you pass out everything else, or just put it on the table, they can grab it? There is an evaluation. If you take a few minutes and share it with me, I would appreciate it. There's 3 key questions on the back. I ask you to share with me something I should start, something I should stop, and something I should continue. That's how I make this better. If you want to book a cloud workshop at your association, Rotary Club, group, accounting group, FICBA, Bar Association, whatever you have, that's fine. You want to know more about who we help, and if it's right for you or clients of yours, we've got that on the back. Kat's got stuff. What I really want to do, I'm sorry to run long, but I want to take the time, make sure if you have questions. If you have a question, ask it. I can guarantee you somebody else has the exact same question and didn't ask it. Are there any questions? Some? Did I do that good a job? Well, great for me.
You did.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me hear it one more time. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Where's my cloud computing to me? You guys sure don't have questions? We can ask questions. Let me do this. Everybody have your cloud computing and me worksheet? All right. All right. The evolution of cloud computing parallels what?
Industrial revolution.
Oh, give this to Jill. I don't know if I want to throw it. Here you go.
Oh, hey, she's your first
The largest water wheel in America was built by Henry Burden. Awesome. Early industry required 2 teams of employees. One to produce the goods and drive the revenue. The other one's dedicated to... I just like this. I like this. Watch it. Ooh, I almost killed the guy. Look up. Okay. The advent of what introduced the utility model? Electricity. This is my way to test your catching skills. I'm already using cloud computing via what? Who said that? You did. A well-designed cloud computing solution can be accessed from. Angel. Watch out, Angel. I'll make sure. Okay. The top 3 benefits of cloud computing are.
That's capital spending.
Cash flow.
Capital spending.
Capital expenditure versus OPEX, return to OPEX, anything else. How about security?
Security.
How about compliance?
Science.
How about scalability? Remember, I never asked you a question I don't know the answer to. I wrote this thing. Work is something you, not a place you. Oh, you guys are great. Go, you get one right here. Hey, oh, Gert, you think you're going to catch it? You better pass that to Gert. Okay. Who didn't get a pen?
We're going to get a pen.
I don't think I want to throw it that far.
Over here. Over here. Everybody here, Ron. Come over here.
All right. Now, are there any questions?
You need some more?
You should see a circus act I have with my daughter. I tell you, huh? You don't ever want to play darts with me. All right. Are there any other questions? Yes.
So you said the cloud is more secure?
Yep. Could be. Usually. I'll explain.
Yeah. How is it more secure? Because all your stuff's out there.
Great question. I want to hit that right in the head. Everybody interested in that? He said
Yeah.
security.
And I want to take a spin on this because
Please.
you have the NSA debacle
Sure.
just a few days, right?
Right.
So not only government can access data, but our competitors can do the same. Hackers can do the same. So security for me is a biggie.
Let's hit security right in the nose. I really appreciate you asking that question. Typical office that I walk into. Huh?
He already knows the answer, by the way.
Oh, okay. That's right. You shouldn't ask questions that know the answer. Is that true, or are you just playing stump the master, or what? Okay. All right. Well, I'll give you my answer, then you can tell me if I'm good or not. Most companies I walk into don't even have a firewall in the office. I ask them where the firewall is, and they point to the router. Now, half of you in the room are in IT and know that a router is the opposite of a firewall. One opens the path to the internet, and one restricts the path to the internet. So they don't even have a firewall in place. My smallest cloud platform that I maintain has 5 redundant firewalls. So let's go back to the numbers. 80% of all US companies have already been hacked by the Chinese. Every element of the US government, including the military, including the entire grid, has been hacked by the Chinese. I do not have better technology than the FBI or the NSA, and they've been hacked by the Chinese. Now, but Or North Korean, or the Iranian Republican Guard. These are fact, or Russian mafia. I'm not making this up.
Oh,
Right, I'm not making that up. So, Russian mafia makes a huge business out of it, China makes a huge strategic deal about it, and North Korea's just trying to take you down. I'm not making any of this up. This is a very serious question. So when I take it out of an office, a small business office, even a big business office, and I take it away, first of all, I'm going to put it in a secure data bunker. So I have better security from I got an armed guard with biometric access. We have restrictions, cameras, etc. I restrict physical access to the data. That's number one. 80% of all hacking where data is stolen, not just hacked, but stolen, is internal. I take it away and take it out because your employees are a big part of the problem. I put it in a place where I can manage enterprise level security, not small business security, that's aggregated over all my clients, which gets us a better hedge against external hacking. I mitigate, I cannot eliminate. Just understand where the technology is. This is business technology for security here. This is the FBI, their level of technology. This is the NSA. Interpol is about here, all right? North Korea is here. Russian mafia is here. And China, punch a hole through that wall, go on the other side. That's where the level of technology is for hacking from China. I'm not making any of this up. This is deadly serious to me. Between you and me, I can't stop that. Most of the Russian mafia stuff happens because of your employees. They are sucked in by scams online and they download the threat. I eliminate that threat because of the technology that I have on the cloud. They could screw up their computer, but they can't screw up where the data is. I could take a computer, I could rebuild it, or I could throw it out. It's just a piece of junk. Really. Your computer at that point is a piece of Chinese junk. But the data, the core data, I separate from this big threat. Now, I'm not a public internet. I'm private internet. So people like the NSA or the FBI do not have servers in my office pulling data. I have to comply with a subpoena if I had a federal subpoena. Guess what? If the server's in your office and the IRS or whoever DOJ shows up with a SWAT team carrying rifles and they knock down the door, throw everybody on the ground, and then hand you a piece of paper that says they have a search warrant instead of knocking, which is how they're doing it. That's how they're doing it. Look at Gibson guitars. Guess what? You're still going to give them the data because that's a federal warrant. It's perfectly good, other than the fact that there's a boot on your neck and they walked out with your server. At least with me, they have to give me a subpoena and we have to electronically sit down and transfer it. But that's not in the dark. The other stuff's being done in the dark. We have no part of that because we're private. Totally different. So how do I increase the security? I get the employees out of the way of screwing up my security. That mitigates 80% of one threat and 60% of data loss. 80% of hacking, 60% of data loss. The rest we deal with network security and backup protocols so that there is no data loss, and we try and mitigate the security threat. I mitigate. I can't eliminate. I'm straight up transparent with that. Is that fair enough? I could do a lot more at the enterprise level in the cloud than I can in your office. I can't protect you from yourself. Yeah.
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Is that shed any clarity on that? Good. I got a thumbs up. I'll take it.
Just a follow-up question.
Please.
Contractual, how do you handle that? Or put it another way, what's in it for me as a customer if you lose my data?
That's a question I'm going to kick to the sales team for today. I will tell you that contractually, the way that Connections contract is written, first and foremost, the client owns the data. That's huge. If you go to some of the public cloud products and you, like Amazon or Google, and you read the fine print, you actually no longer own the data. It's no longer an industry standard format, it's near impossible to get it off. So one thing that's important is you have to look at a contract with any vendor and say, who owns the data? You have to have confidence and ask questions about what are the backup and redundancy procedures for the data on the cloud to mitigate the possibility of loss. I will tell you that I can architect a system that puts it on the cloud in one place, replicates it in real time to another time zone, to another cloud facility, and hot, can do a dynamic failover. If you've got a client or you want to do that with me, fantastic. Ka-ching. It's twice the platform, twice the thing. I've got the technology to do that. I've yet to meet a small business client that wants to do that, but I can do that. I have all the depth you need for archiving, data loss mitigation, etc. You gotta tell us about your business needs, tell us about your compliance, and we can work a system that will handle that. I don't know if that answers your question. If you're looking for a legal liability, I lose a gigabit of data,
What
what
is
happens?
what is standard in a contract of cloud computing? What would be the standard?
The
that would be
standard,
offered?
the industry standard. I will tell you the industry standard is, we do the best we can.
So it's best effort.
That's the standard,
Okay.
is that we put the pieces in place to mitigate the possibility of data loss. Most data loss in an office, 60% of it is because of you and employees. Deleting stuff, hacking stuff, stealing stuff, etc. We eliminate that 60% and then we work on redundancy and backup over here. I could get into how many SANs are mirrored and mirrored in different locations and snapshots and all that. It just starts to get very geeky. I'd rather have that conversation with you
Okay.
one-on-one because I promised people that I wouldn't get into that bits and bytes and electron stuff. And I want to keep it there. I know you have more of a technical background and I'll hang around and have that with you, but I don't want to drag you down.
At that point, you can also tell him that there are metrics that he can see with the key performance indicators.
You want to see what a measured uptime is. Uptime is not the same as data loss.
No, I was just interested in the legal thing, in the legal contractual thing that is standard and is given to me to sign
That-
when I decide to move my data out of my data center into your data center.
I'm not the right guy to ask about the legal standard for a specific contract. I will tell you the industry standard comes down to, in plain English, best effort.
Okay.
Because there's no guarantees. Are there any other questions? A great question. Security was a great question. Any other questions? Yes,
What
sir.
about utilizing third-party software? In the case of, let's say, data dashboards. Let's say, because I rely on data, and I need to feed this pro in order for me to see live data.
Not a problem.
Live data, not. and-
Got it. Got it. It's funny you should say, you paid to say that?
No.
Okay. Third-party products in general, so we get away from Microsoft products and we're running third-party line business.
Third-party.
Runs on the cloud, not a problem. Almost all modern software, and if you have something that was written in PIC Basic 20 years ago for an AS400 system, can I put that on, can I put that on the cloud? As is, no, not really. You'd have to, but any current modern software is compatible with terminal services, compatible with Citrix, we can run it on the cloud. If you want to do a data feed from this cloud to a desktop over here, or a server here displaying a dashboard, yes. Do you want to just run the dashboard product on the same thing with the product on the cloud? You can do that too. The answer is yes and yes.
Can I install my third-party software in your environment?
Of course. Most of the clients of Connections, and most of the Connections clients are on the cloud, every single one of them has some piece of third-party software. It could be construction related, it could be accounting. Look, QuickBooks. If I told you I run QuickBooks on the cloud for almost everybody, you go, well that's third-party software. Typically third-party software means it's not Microsoft. Okay? So I don't care if it's Peachtree, I don't care if it's QuickBooks, I don't care if it's Sage, I don't care if it's Dynamics, I don't care modern, if it's the current version, it's typically going to be Citrix compatible, we'll put it up on the cloud. Does that answer your question? If it didn't run third-party software, it would not be that useful. The ability to run third-party software on private cloud like what Bill has is one of the key differences between, thanks so much, Eric, is one of the key differences between that and public cloud like Microsoft 365 or Google Docs. What happens if I want to run all these great Microsoft products and QuickBooks? Can't put QuickBooks here. That's third-party software. I'm built to handle third-party software. You could run no Microsoft products, I wouldn't care. Doesn't bother me. Customize it around your business. We don't put you in a box. We try and free and get you out of the box. Big difference. Yes?
Right back to that question, so did that answer? Because you were talking-
That is very important because today you're using a lot of business analytics.
That's
I
right.
mean, live data.
Right.
That you're using it on time. Doesn't
Right.
matter where the server is at.
Yeah.
The key is I buy third-party software, then I just made a good deal here for where would it reside and where it's going to create the sandbox environment that I need in order for me to make that most
What it
efficient
does is it
decision.
communicates through a port, so your information is still safe and it's not modifying the data, and it communicates through a port to tap into that information. Does that make sense?
That's what you're talking about on a dashboard, right?
I'm talking about dashboard product.
Yeah, that's fine.
When you see that, all I just see in my screen is just a screen. That, where
Right.
it resides.
Where it resides is
Where does it
irrelevant.
reside? Where's the data? Where's the sandbox environment?
It's up on the cloud.
And where's the backup? That's what it is.
There's typically backup internally and backup to another data center if you'd like.
Well, the dynamic is going in the server.
Right.
It's not my server, it's your server.
That's correct.
And we do that.
Yes. I also do a lot of hybrids. We're part of the infrastructure. Certain applications stay on site and are backed up to the cloud, and certain applications live on the cloud all the time. So a typical example would be manufacturing down here. They may have design software, CAD/CAM, that's driving millwork equipment and a server storing that. That all stays on site. We back it up, take the backup, move it to the cloud. The back office, Microsoft Office, the accounting, the sales software, all goes out to the cloud because there's no reason to keep it in the office. Leaving things in the office is just a liability, particularly email. Any other questions? Great question, by the way. I don't know if we got too down a rabbit hole, but y'all follow that? Y'all pretty technical, yeah? Any other questions? Guys, let me say this from the bottom of my heart. I really want to thank you for sharing this time with me. You came out this morning. I hope you got some networking in. I hope you got a pretty interesting education. Cloud computing, I told you it goes back to the 1800s. I hope you learned a couple things. I hope you'll decide to meet with me in the next couple of weeks so we can talk about it further. You know how to do that. Talk to Richard primarily, talk to Kat or Bill. Fill out an assessment form, take a pen if you didn't get one. If you want to bring this to somewhere else, we'd love to do it anywhere you've got, any association, group, club. I'll be happy to come and take this presentation. If you share your eval with me, I appreciate it. If you know anybody you think this would be a fit for, you'd be doing us both a favor, them and me, if you would make that connection. Could I ask that of you? Make sense? If you could add value to someone else's business, you saw something, you'd be doing them a favor and me as well. So I appreciate it very much, and I would value your trust. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We will like you on Facebook.
Okay, you would. Terrific. Please like me on Facebook. Please follow the master to that.
Yes.
Remember what John said about evil? Leo? You remember what John said about evil? It's evil to be down. Right? Well, do you know what the reverse of evil is? Spell evil backwards. Live. If you live with the right company and the right technology and the right people, you stay out. So, communications today, we're in the communications age, and you realize we don't communicate very well. Got it? So, I would just encourage you, get a good company, has good people that communicates, has good technology, and you really have a partner. Check us out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you for your time.
Very good presentation, Jonathan.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you in this seminar.
Is this presentation?